Hey everyone, so we've already learned that we could solve by taking square roots. For example, on the left here we have x squared equals 16. Taking square root of both sides, we get x equals plus or minus 4. We can use that same idea that squares and square roots are opposite to solve by squaring. Take this square root of x equals 4 on the right. If we square both sides, that square root and square are going to cancel each other out, leaving us with x equals 4 squared, which will be 16. Whenever we square, we do not have to use the plus or minus like we did when taking the square roots. Remember, a square always makes a negative or a positive positive, so when we go backwards or square to solve, we only need to square, we don't need to do a plus or minus. To solve by squaring, we can take very similar steps that we've done when taking square roots. Get the square roots by itself, square both sides of the equation, solve, and it is very important to check your answers when doing these. Checking your answers is always a good idea, but in some cases when you square something, you're going to get an answer that doesn't actually work. We'll see an example like that later in the video. To start things off, we've got square root of x equals 9. Let's start by squaring both sides. Since our square root is already by itself, that's going to cancel out the square root, giving us x equals 9 squared, which is 81. And if we check that answer, we're going to get the square root of 81, which indeed is 9. So we know that this 81 is our solution. Let's try this beautiful example right here. Square root of y equals negative 6. Start by squaring each side. That's going to cancel out our square root, giving us y equals negative 6 squared. Negative 6 times negative 6 is positive 36. Let's go ahead and check this out. The square root of 36 is actually 6, not the negative 6 that we started with. So we can see that this 36 is not a correct solution. So this problem here actually does not have a solution even though we were able to solve from here. That's one huge reason you've got to check your answers. And you might kind of see a pattern where you can't have a square root equal to a negative number. Here we've got square root of 2x minus 1 equals 3. Now we actually can start, even though it's complex in here, by squaring each side. Because this 2x minus 1, even though it's a little more complex, is still all under the square root. That's going to cancel out the square root, leaving us with 2x minus 1 equals 9. Solving like normal, we can add 1 to get 10, divide by 2, giving us x equals 5. Let's check it out to make sure everything's kosher. That's going to give us 2 times 5 minus 1, just looking back at our original equation here. 2 times 5 minus 1, which would simplify to square root of 9, which is 3, which is exactly what we want. So we've got our solution, x equals 5. Say we had something like square root of x minus 4 equals 6. This time we can actually add 4 to each side first because this negative 4 is outside of the square root. So we need to get this alone first. That'll give us square root of x equals 10. And squaring both sides, we'll get our answer of x equals 100. And if you check that out, we're going to see that it works. All right, last one for us right now. This is about as tough as it's going to get for us in this lesson. Square root of 2x squared plus 1 minus x equals 1. Isolating the square root, we can add x to both sides. And we get square root of 2x squared plus 1 equals 1 plus x. All right, what do you think is going to happen here? Go ahead and give it a try. For those of you that said square both sides, you're absolutely right. And for those of you that didn't try because you knew I was going to tell you, I'm disappointed. I expect better. Anyway, no matter what you did, this square and square root is going to cancel out, giving us 2x squared plus 1. But what I want you to notice here is something interesting is going to happen. We have to square this entire side. That's going to be 1 plus x squared. In other words, 1 plus x times 1 plus x. If we distribute all of that out, we're going to get equals 1 plus 2x plus x squared. Now we've got x squared terms. Let's get everything over on one side of the equation and see what we're left with. Subtracting x squared from the 2x squared leaves us with x squared, minus 2x from both sides gives us negative 2x. And if we subtract the 1 over, that's going to cancel out, leaving us with x squared minus 2x equals 0. Phone call. Yeah. Okay, bye. You might notice this is a quadratic equation. Let's see if we can factor, and we absolutely can. We can take out an x times x minus 2, and solving x equals 0 and x minus 2 equals 0, we get x equals 0 or 2. And if we plug each of those back into our original equation, check them out, make sure they're good, they absolutely are, and these are going to be our answers.